Your definition of a soulmate is the person that you marry that God has brought to you.
So
is that not what your definition of a soulmate is?
Yes, it was what I said.
So what you're telling me now is that God can make a person here, then be soulmates, but they never meet.
Yes.
So God's plan has failed.
No.
Why? Because
in the ideal sense, it should have been one for one. And that's why
I suppose the bit where you're missing, which is the practical bit, is that the understanding of soulmate is that once you find that person, that's your person. You're not gonna get it right with anybody else. That's the concept of soulmate. So people will say my relationships are not working out because that's not my soulmate. I haven't found my soulmate. So it's the idea that once you find, so people could say I found my soulmate.
You know, I respect that. I don't have an issue with that.
No, but that's the bit that I need.
I'm gonna try.
With your analogies. And
there are a lot of things in life that you don't know until you are in them, right? So until you are, let's say, until you meet somebody, until you go through tough times, until you enjoy the highs and the lows, maybe only then can you be like, you know what? Now that I think about it, this was always my soulmate. Yeah, this was the one that I was meant to be with. I don't substitute the language of soulmate or the one for no hard times, for no needing to work through things, for no needing to compromise and so on and so forth. You see? So to go to what you've just said, there could be certain people that are saying that, but I could argue, maybe the first person that they met was the soulmate, but they didn't work through things. And like I said, because of wickedness, unfortunately, she went down a different path. Or rather, God took her down a different path. Instead of going this way to Canaan, they went all the way for the 9 years to Canaan. That's the thing. That's the point. That's why I'm saying that the concept.
Wait, hang on. So do you just say that someone can be with their soulmate, but because of things are not ideal, whatever, that cannot work out, and then they can go on to, let's say, get married and live a happily ever after without their soulmate?
Yeah, I think that is what I've just said. Yeah,
but then that doesn't make any sense then, because your definition of soulmate relies on the fact that God has planned for you to end up with someone. So unless we're saying God's plan fails,
no,
which is what I know it's not what you're saying, but then that's what you're saying.
No,
it's not what you're intending or meaning, but that's what you're saying.
I'm gonna walk down.
Hang on. Before you carry on, because I just want to catch everyone up, so that everyone is where we're at, right? Because your definition of soulmate, which I think is where a lot of Christians get it wrong, for personally, but your idea of soulmate is that God knows the beginning and the end, yeah, and in His plan, He has matched you with someone, yeah? And because God has matched you with someone in His plan, therefore, I guess this is why I need your clarification then. In your understanding, therefore, you're going to find that someone regardless. Therefore, you're going to be with them regardless, yeah? Okay, cool. So that's the understanding. But then in what you're explaining, you gave a scenario where you have met your soulmate, but because you didn't want to work on things, or, maybe you're just a bit too selfish at that phase of your life, whatever, you've lost them. So how do the two marry? If God's plan doesn't fail, how can you miss your soulmate?
So there's a verse I came across. Those are very good questions. Yeah, those are very good questions. And the answer is really deep, but I'm gonna attempt it. Right?
You don't always have to give a disclaimer before your answer.
The problem is, right? The problem is that God has designed and planned certain things, right? For example, the plan for Jonah was to go to Nineveh and preach. Yeah. But look at what happened to Jonah. Yeah. Look at what he tried to do and so on and so forth. One can argue, well, does that mean that God didn't know that Jonah was going to do that? Or did God know that Jonah was going to do that? Was Jonah doing that part of God's plan? You see what I'm saying? There's a lot of what. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that the perfect ideal plan is that there is someone that God has planned for you to marry. Yeah, that is in the perfect ideal plan, right? However, with what's happened to the world, with how sin entered and so on and so forth. Yeah, again, that's not to say that God had to change his mind or change his plan, but then in the infinite knowledge of God, yeah, there are certain things that are gonna happen that shouldn't have happened, but they are gonna happen, right? So, in a perfect world, I will end up with my soulmate first time.
Okay, but we don't live in a perfect world.
In an imperfect world,
let's talk about the reality that we live in.
In the imperfect world, I will date a few girls. You know, I'll break up with them. I'll even maybe marry somebody. I'll marry somebody. I'll get a divorce. You know, now you could attribute a lot of things to that. You know, you were not checking in the right places. You're not looking in the right places. You know, you were not listening to advice. You can attribute a lot of things that have led to that life. Yeah. And then I'll either end up being with that one person or because of maybe of my choices or because of the path that God had wanted me to live, whatever, I may never end up with that person. Yeah, I'll end up elsewhere. But that doesn't mean that there was never a person that I should have ended up with. Does that make sense?
Okay. No. I'll be honest with you. I can pick it apart, but for the progress of moving on a little bit, I want to move on slightly. And the question I want to start with you is, okay, so your concept of soulmates exists, yeah?
Yes.
You're talking to a young Christian who's asking about dating and everything. Are you telling them that they should be looking for their soulmate?
That's a perfect question. Indirectly, yes, but I would not use those words.
Okay, what are you telling them?
So I'm telling this, and this is why I was saying that sometimes we don't know certain things until we're in them, because a soulmate is not going to come with the sign saying soulmate. I'm answering the question in Professor Nick style. Yeah, a soulmate is not going to come with a sign on their forehead saying I'm your soulmate. Okay. Yeah. So what am I teaching this young Christian person? How am I advising this young Christian person? I advise them. You know, you look for someone that has got the same beliefs as you. For example, you know, you look for someone that has got integrity or whatever. And so on and so forth, you know, that kind of thing, you know, that's what I'll tell them. But then what I'm disagreeing with is saying that
but
so can't they find all those qualities in somebody that's not their soulmate?
The teen has a very good question. Number one,
what was that question?
But the teen has asked you, should I be looking for my soulmate, or do you? I don't know how to phrase the question.
I get the question.
Basically, they want to know is, do soulmates exist or not?
So I get that question. So I'm saying that if your priorities and your cause are right, you will meet that soulmate. The person that you do meet is gonna be that soulmate. That's what I'm saying. So you don't put the soulmate thing ahead. You don't do that. And that's why I was saying that if someone was to ask me, let's say, for example, about you two, I would say, yes, you make your soulmate.
Doesn't that go back to my personal, to multiple soulmates? Because what you're saying is you'd give them a list of, this is what you should be looking for a good woman, for a good wife. That person comes along and then it's like, okay, yeah, that's your soulmate.
But that person is not just coming along willy-nilly. I'm saying there's divine intervention in that. I'm saying... guys, we have to remember, this is the thing with Christian. I feel like with the modern Christendom, we are low-key trying to detach divine intervention from certain things.
We're not detaching divine intervention.
If we are not detaching divine intervention, then my question would be, what role does God play in the person that you're going to end up with?
I'll tell you.
You see? And whatever answer you're going to tell me, I'm going to be like, that's it. God is giving you your soulmate. Because if God gives you somebody, if God is saying that as my child, here is a wife for you, then I'm saying that's the person that you were meant to be with.
Haggai, that was meant to be soulmate.
Yes. And that's the thing. Haggai, Abraham and Haggai. Yeah. And this is a point where I'm saying that, unfortunately, it's not that simple. You know, was Haggai part of the plan? I would say yes, he was part of the plan of God.
We're not changing the plan of God. We're not disputing the plan of God.
I really don't like this. This is not that simple answer, because that's not really an answer, right?
No, I'm saying that statement. I'm going into details. So I'm not just.
We're trying to understand the concept of soulmate practically in reality in the world we're living in right now. Yeah. So I'm okay with espousing an ideal, right? But with like stating how ideally something is, right? But then if we're to make any progress, we then have to apply that ideal practically, which is why I asked you the question about a young Christian. You're teaching them that soulmates exist, yeah? And they're telling you, okay, fine, how am I finding my soulmate? You're saying, look for someone with integrity. look for someone who believes the same things as you, blah blah blah, all the thing. Yeah, you're saying God is going to bring the right person to that girl, and that's their soulmate. Yeah, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
What you're talking about can happen multiple times in someone else's life. Yeah. So according to your understanding, so a woman finds a perfect man 3 times. Which one of them is their soulmate?
Only one of them is going to be their soulmate.
But how do they identify which one?
They don't have to. They don't have to.
Why not?
Because, and this is the thing, right? This is why I'm saying that, going back to the youngsters example that you gave, yeah, your job is not necessarily to look at the sign saying soulmate on this one, yeah. If you have the right values, right principles, you meet the right person, it's magical. You know, I believe in that particular moment, you're gonna have your soulmate. You're gonna be happy. You're gonna be fine. Yeah.
So as long as you're happy, you can name that person your soulmate.
It's yes. Let me say that. Yes.
So you can name more than 3 people.
So then there is no such thing as a soulmate.
No. Okay, guys, hear me out.
We're hearing it. We're not trying to be difficult. I'm just questioning
I feel like you're failing to understand where the gap is, because we're hearing what you're saying. Because you're saying you meet. So basically, you're saying there's a soulmate, but you're never gonna know who that person is. That's what you're saying.
That's what you've just said.
Ultimately, that's what you can think someone is your soulmate,
but you're never
really gonna know for sure. Is what you're
Fine.
saying.
I'll accept that. Yes, I'll say that. Yes, but I'll add this. Yeah, I did say earlier that there are certain things you only know in the moment when you are in them. Yeah. So let's take a couple that's been married for 30 years, for example. Yeah. It could take them 30 years for one of them or both of them to realize this was my soulmate. Okay. Yeah. It could take five months or whatever. Yeah. So yes, in that sense, I can say yes, you will never know your soulmate in brackets. But bird's eye view, from God's point of view, God,
you said bird's eye view. I was like, hold on.
Bird's eye view.
I was like, hold on.
Bird's eye view, I do believe that there is one person that is meant for you, and God will send that person to you. Now, whether God has determined that you're only going to spend 10 years with that person and then they die or not,
and then you find someone else,
and that's another matter. And then you find someone else, yes, that's the different matter.
So has God prepared 2 soulmates for you then?
In that case, I guess I can say yes. But I want to give an example. Yeah, I want to give an example, biblical example. John chapter 4, we spoke about recently. The woman met Christ at the well, and Christ asked him, where's your husband? And she said, I have no husband. And he said, yes, you have spoken well in that, because you've had 5 or whatever, and the one you're with right now is not your husband. Technically, there was only one husband that she had that was accepted as this woman's husband. After that, these were not husbands, and so on and so forth.
Even if that was true, that's because of custom, that's because of law.
Yeah, it is, but I'm just taking that example to say
but we're saying, unless you explain how it applies to soulmate, right now that statement applies to the law and the custom of the time. So you can. I'm saying right now the link you're making is not valid because the statement applies to the law and the time. So unless you can show us why that statement applies to something bigger, to soulmates, that we're just pointing out that currently that doesn't work for us. So unless you explain how you're linking it to the soulmate aspect, you carry on.
Fair enough. I'm linking it again because I'm going back to the link I was making with marriage. Yeah, so that's why I'm linking that. So this woman technically only had one legitimate husband. So I'm interchanging that. So technically, only one of those husbands that she had was a true soulmate. But because of things that happened surrounding her life and everything like that, she ended up where she ended up.
Okay. But how are we sure that one husband was her soulmate? Because that's the point.
She does. Okay, fine.
No.
She doesn't have to be sure.
The point me and Titi are making is, I get what you're trying to say, but the reason Christ said what Christ said was because of custom and law. So it wasn't anything to do with that husband being the one that was meant for her. That was to do with the marriage laws.
Okay, let me state something clear. You're not going to find a verse in the Bible that's going to tell you that there is the one for everybody. This is
and for that reason is why I would say it doesn't exist.
No, they're biblical observations. Unless if you don't believe in biblical observations, hold on.
But that's why we're addressing every observation you're bringing. That's why we're having the discussion. Because you're right. If you're going to infer soulmates, it's going to be through observations and conclusions. And that's why we have to address those observations and conclusions.
So let me say this.
To see whether they stand. If they stand, they stand. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah. First, maybe let's discuss the term soulmate. Yeah, because you've said that what I'm saying versus the term soulmate, they are not. It's not the same thing.
That's a good example.
Yeah?
Okay, so let's start from there.
Hold on.
No. To address your first point about, let's discuss what soulmate is. Yeah, that's a good point to start from.
So while you're still here, guys, just want to say a massive thank you for staying and for listening. Please like and subscribe, and we hope you're enjoying the conversation. Please put your thoughts in the comments because we would love to hear your views.
Okay. So you have said that because God has planned for this person to marry this person, that makes them that's what your understanding is soulmate to be. Yeah, because it's in God's plan. So what I'm saying is, and this is perfectly acceptable in God's eyes, right? So two people get married. Yeah, they got you. What you're saying is they got married because God wanted them to get married. Yeah, they brought them to each other. One of them dies. The surviving one marries another one. What you're saying is that he's married the next one because God has led them to each other for them to marry. Yeah? Great. The second one dies. He marries the third one. What you're saying is that God has led him to the third one for them to marry and have a good life, whatever. Yeah? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah? So by your definition I initially gave, this person has had one soulmate, two soulmate, three soulmate. Because all those three marriage are in the plans of God. Are they not? Am I misunderstanding what you understand soulmate to be and how it practically applies?
No, you're not misunderstanding, first and foremost. But I want to clarify one thing. I want to add this. Yeah. So,
and I'm not confident.
You know, how can you not be confident? Anything that follows a laugh does not warrant any confidence whatsoever. Go on.
What I'm trying to communicate is that
No. Hang on. Remember,
I'm sticking to
I was
that.
still talking. So I was.
Okay, fine.
I asked the question that am I misunderstanding? So you said no, but so I wanted
Okay,
you. I
fine.
thought you were replying
I'll
to my understanding.
Yeah, I am.
Just to
trying
clarify
understand.
that,
Yeah,
it sounded
yeah.
like you're starting a whole different
Really,
point.
he was.
Because I'm
He
still
was
talking.
about to.
No, I wasn't. What I'm saying is, in that example that you've given, yeah, for me, I'm seeing that only one of them could have been, again, in the language of soulmate, could have been the OG soulmate. Yeah. Period. Could have been none of them. Could have been it could be none of them. Yeah. It could be none of them.
All right, go on.
Yeah.
So
it could be one of them.
Only
it could
one
be
of
none
them. It could be one of them. It could be none of them.
It could be none of them.
Yeah,
yes.
go on.
That's what I'm saying. Just because you've ended up marrying somebody, just because you've ended up dating somebody, just because you've ended up being happy with someone, it may not necessarily mean that they were the one that you were supposed to have ended up with if things had fallen differently according to the intentions of what God wanted.
But this is where you're confusing us.
Yeah, because you already agreed that all those three marriages were God ordained. They were in the plans of God.
Yes.
Because we already said
But
that
then you're
God's plan
saying,
doesn't fail.
but if what God's plan, if what God had intended had come to fruition, you'd have
if I'm
married
a
your
man,
soulmate.
yeah, exactly. That's what you're saying.
Being in the plans of God does not necessarily mean that it's a good thing.
No, I'm not.
We're not
this is
denying
about
that.
It doesn't necessarily mean that it's your soulmate that you've ended up with.
Your definition of a soulmate is the person that you marry that God has brought to you.
So
is that not what your definition of a soulmate is?
Yes, it was what I said. So allow me to clarify that then for you.
Okay, no. Clarify based on my questions. So what you're telling me now is that God can make a person here, them be soulmates, but they never meet.
Yes.
So God's plan has failed.
No.
Why? Because God has created...
This is the thing.
No. Because in God's plan, he created Mary and John to be together. That's what you said soulmates are, yeah? So God has created Mary and John to be together, but they were not together. The plan has failed.
No, the plan hasn't failed.
So what has it?
What has the plan
happened
there is that for whatever reason, God has led these two people in two different paths for whatever reason.
That means they were never created to be together.
Because what you were saying was God will create. You were saying
if they don't meet, it simply means they were never created to be together. Because if they were created to be together, they would be together. That's what soulmate is. If they were created to be together, they would be together. Because God's plan never fails. Or if you're a mystic because the stars never fell, or because the power of the universe never fails. But that's what soulmates are. And if Christians believe in soulmates, they have to believe that. that if Mary and John are created to be together, they
God will
be
find
together.
a way for them to come together.
I'm trying to think of an example that could articulate what I was saying.
Okay, what you're thinking, because we've heard, right? So I don't know if I'm in opposition. Clear. I'll make it clear now, because I don't believe in the idea of concept or the
In the idea of concept.
in the idea of soulmates. Sorry, or the concept of soulmates
I
in
think
the
he
way
wanted
that
to say in the idea or the concept.
in the way that it is understood, and even in the way that Christians want to borrow that concept and apply it to ourselves in trying to understand, soulmates. Why, right? Here's where I do agree with what you're saying, right? God's plan never fails. Yeah, that statement I agree with. God's plan will always prevail, right? We don't know what God's plan is. Yeah, we don't. We don't know what God has in store for us for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Even tomorrow,
right? That's God's business. Yeah. We can go into, he shows his plans to his servants when it's necessary, prophetic events, blah blah blah. Okay, that's cool. That's fine.
exceptions.
No exceptions. That's a different discussion to what we're talking about. So for example, if I plan to next year I want to go to New York. Yeah, that's my plan. Yeah, but we know that God has already his plan has his plan, or what I'll be doing next year in summer, whether I'm in New York or whatever, right? So we know that all the days of our lives are written down even before we've lived one. Yeah. The concept of soulmates, or of this whole one person created for another person and they have to find each other, I think firstly it's not biblical, because that's not how we see the Bible talking about relationships and stuff like that. I don't think, right? I think our portion is to worry about what God has told us to worry about, which is, for me, for example, would be finding a good wife. Yeah, he that finds a good wife finds a good thing, or finds a blessing from the Lord. Oh, what is a good wife? The Bible shows me what a good wife looks like. Yeah. So if someone is asking me, should I be fine? No. Don't worry about your soulmate. These are the characteristics of a good wife. This is what the Bible says. Yeah. Find someone who looks like this. Yeah. For a man, we know, short-tempered, good with their parents.
Not short-tempered.
No, good. You know what I mean. Not quick to anger.
Slow to anger.
You can find all the attributes up and down the Bible. Yeah. So if someone's asking me, what kind of person should I be looking? A soulmate. No. Johnny, don't worry about soulmate. Right? You want? I was gonna say Johnny. You want the man. I'll say Jenny, because I'm on the man now. Jenny. You want a man? Look for a man who has these qualities. Yeah, that's what we should worry about. Finding men of God, women of God. Yeah, hang on, I'm still going. Now, what the Bible says is that when two come together, they become one flesh. Yeah. So Jenny, I've shown Jenny a godly man. Sam, I've just shown Samuel. Those two find each other. Recognize that he meets the qualities, get together. The Bible says, what God has joined, let no man pull asunder. Yeah? It's funny why the Bible never once alluded to, I don't know, the two halves that have found each other, let no man. The Bible says, what God has put together, let no man pull asunder. Yeah? Therefore, a man shall leave his wife and be joined to his wife and become one flesh. So what I'm saying is, where the unity, where the one fleshness comes in, is when the two find each other and that's where God is saying, you are now one.
And those two are finding themselves coincidentally
God's
out
plan.
of chance.
Remember, I already said about
He already
God's plan.
said about God's plan.
I said, don't worry about God's plan.
Can I jump in then?
Remember, I said, don't worry about God's plan.
Can I jump in then?
I'm almost done. I'm on one more point. Yeah.
Go on.
I said, don't worry about God's plan, right? Worry about what we're given. Yeah. So don't worry about who you're meant. That's going to be a different avenue about the problems that soulmate causes. Yeah, but don't worry about who you're meant to be with. Yeah, or don't worry about the perfect person out there for you. No, they don't exist. worry about finding a godly woman, worry about finding a godly man that you find attractive and they fit everything else that's meant to fit. If everything fits, go have fun.
And for me, that's what I'm saying, that would be the person that you were meant to end up with.